So today is a beautiful winter's day, but it is freezing. So I'm going in here to go on the turbo to do my endurance ride. Okay, so as I said, it is freezing outside. I'm coming in here to do my endurance ride, which hopefully will be 2 hours. But sometimes being on the turbo for 2 hours can be really hard work on the backside. So today's video is about some tips on how to make riding on the turbo or smart trainer more enjoyable or more bearable when it's cold or wet outside. And I think the first thing to do is get your setup set up so you don't have to worry about doing stuff and getting it all organised. If you're lucky enough to have a space that you can call your trainer zone, well then it's a lot easier just to come in, jump on the bike and get going. So one thing I find really useful if I'm going to try to do a long ride on the trainer is to make sure I've got some entertainment. And for me, Zwift doesn't really do it. It's very different to being in a Zwift race. If you're just doing a long, steady ride, I find just looking at Zwift and me riding around Rotopia not exactly captivating. So I tend to watch Netflix and things like that while I'm riding, just to keep me entertained and to keep my mind off the hours I might be spending on the trainer. Another thing that's really important on the trainer is it's really easy to forget to fuel. If you were going out for a ride of 2 or 3 hours, you'd probably be taking some energy drink with you, maybe a bar or something like that to eat. So don't forget to do that on the trainer. If you're on the trainer for a steady 2 hours, you're burning through quite a few calories, and probably to get the best out of it and to make sure you're not too depleted for a ride you might be doing tomorrow, make sure you fuel. And you can even set a timer to make sure that you're reminded to eat or drink, you know, every half hour or something like that. But just be taking in a bit of fuel through the ride to make sure you're maximising the benefits you get. Obviously, if it's a short ride, you don't need to fuel necessarily, depending on what you're doing. But on a 2 or 3 hour turbo ride, as I said, you will be burning through quite a lot of calories. And another thing that's going to make a difference is having a decent fan to cool you down. Even in winter, and I'm not particularly using my fan at the moment, or won't be, it really does make a difference to your riding ability if you can moderate your temperature and, if necessary, keep the temperature cool in the room while you're training. So a decent fan, whether you wall mount it or whether you floor mount it, doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. And another thing you could bear in mind is if you're on the trainer in a small space and you've been on there for an hour, the air is probably going to get pretty stuffy. So actually opening the door and getting some fresh air in, even if it is cold, is probably a good idea to get a bit of a change of air and oxygen in the room. If you're finding this content interesting and useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so you see more videos like this as they come out on the channel. Another thing to remember is try to alter your cadence. It's very easy if you're in erg mode just to stay at a set cadence for, you know, minutes on end, which your muscles don't really like. So to make it a little bit more bearable, make sure you change up your cadence every now and then by going through the gears or coming off erg mode if that's what you're on, so you can actually vary cadence and the sort of strain and stresses on your muscles. When you're sat on the saddle for so long, it's very unnatural. When you're out on the bike, you're always moving around, whether it's because of balance or going around corners, or you're standing on a hill or climb. So when you're on the trainer, you are literally sat down with your backside being the main point of contact for hours on end. But normally if you're doing intervals or you're doing a hard ride, the sheer effort of you putting in, you know, that torque into your legs tends to take you off the saddle a bit. So, you know, there's less strain on your backside, or less squashing or less restriction of blood flow. When you're doing a slow, steady ride, you tend to just be sat in the saddle, and it really does take its effect. So try to make sure you're sort of moving around on the saddle if you can, changing positions, and as I said, getting off the saddle every now and then to get the blood flowing. A link to that is wearing good quality bib shorts. It's very easy to assign old bib shorts to your trainer pile, and I've done that in the past. And having old, worn out bib shorts on a trainer isn't necessarily the best thing. Probably you need the best quality you can get and your newest bib shorts on the trainer to make sure the pad's really working well and gives you the support you need. And lastly, don't forget that trainer rides, if you're doing endurance rides, are meant to be in the sort of zone 2 area. So make sure you're not riding too hard so you're outside that zone where you want to be. So one thing I do is just get off the trainer for a minute or two, just to have a bit of a break and relieve the pressure on the backside a little bit, and then get back on it pretty quickly. But I find that minute or so really does make a big difference. So one thing I haven't used, although I have heard they work quite well, are rocker plates. So plates that go underneath the trainer to provide some sort of movement backward and forward or side to side, or suspension or balls I've seen people using. Do you use those? Have you found them useful? I'd be interested to find out. Don't forget to drop that in the comments down below. So what have I missed? Are there other tips that you would say to riders if you're someone who does long rides on the turbo, on the trainer? What do you do to make it more comfortable or more bearable? And all those things I've gone through today, I have made the mistake of not doing those in the past, and it has made lots of uncomfortable trainer rides. So I hope you found the video useful and interesting, and until next time, bye for now.